Namaste, dear students. Welcome to the new semester. I am Dr. Gampala Prabhakar from HSS department. This semester, you have one management related subject named Business Economics and Financial Analysis. We simply call it as BEFA. This subject is about how to understand business economics and how to analyze business transactions and how to record it. Let me share you the PPT regarding to this particular subject. Yes, the subject name is Business Economics and Financial Analysis, BEFA. It is in third year BTech, first semester. Here, my details are available, right? My site is also available. So through this site, you can access material, any books available regarding this. You can get through this particular site if you want to see, you can access it. Coming to the units given in this particular course, as usual 5 units. The first unit is about engineering economics, second unit macroeconomic concepts, third unit production cost, market structure and pricing, fourth one capital budgeting, fifth one introduction to accounting. In economics, you can see two broad concepts. One is microeconomics, another one is macroeconomics. Microeconomics discuss about one particular entity, one organization, how that organization utilizing resources to fulfill their wants. Economics all the time deals with unlimited wants and limited scarce of means. So here, this particular one, the first unit deals with the microeconomics, right? So in a microeconomics, particularly engineering economics, means in a production department, how the engineer utilize the given resources to produce a commodity. Particularly, let us take a manufacturing concern, right? So in a manufacturing concern, particularly in a production department, you see there are various machinery, material, manpower you consume to produce a commodity product. Here, the business person, the owner of the business, always focus on minimum utilization of resources and maximum productivity. Right? That particular concept is about economics, how to best utilize the given resources to reach the objective. So in this particular unit, we discuss about what is engineering economics, what are their principles, what is demand, what is supply, what are the factors determining demand, what is demand forecasting. These are the topics we see in a first unit. Second unit is about a macroeconomics. It deals with the large scale economics nationwide. For example, how to calculate domestic gross domestic product, how to calculate national income, how to understand productivity, national productivity. All these matters we discuss in a second unit. When you come to the third unit, it is about the production methods, production systems, different types of costs, different type of market structures, how to determine price, matters we discuss in a third unit. When come to the fourth unit, it is about a capital budgeting techniques. And simply for your understanding, we can say long run investment decisions. How to take long run investment decision. When you are going to buy a mission, buy a land, buy any huge investment related a product or a machinery plant, right? So before you evaluate whether this particular buying decision benefit us or not, you should not buy the product. Suppose let me take a mission, right? You would like to buy a mission by spending 1 crore rupees, right? Today you have to pay that 1 crore rupees to acquire that machine. But if that machine cannot produce more than 1 crore rupees worth of revenue, there is no use of buying that particular machine. At the same time, you will incur in losses. So, how to evaluate long-term investment decisions? You can learn from the fourth unit. And fifth unit is about accounting, how to record the business transactions, how to understand the business profit, expenditure, business assets, liabilities, how to understand, how to record all these matters you can study in a fifth unit. Let us come to the course objectives and the outcomes. So here you can see the course objectives. Prepare engineering students to analyze cost revenue financial data, to make economic and financial analysis in decision making process, to examine the performance of companies engaged in engineering, especially in engineering area. At the same time, after learning this particular course, you should be able to perform a evaluated perform and evaluate present and future worth of the alternative projects. Just now I said how to do it in a fourth unit. You can learn that. At the same time, appraise projects by using traditional and discounting cash flow methods, DCF, discounting cash flow methods. This is also you can learn from the fourth unit. Different type of costs you can learn. Break even point, what is break even point? So the cost, production, all matters you can understand, right? So that you can cooperate with your management once you join in a business as an engineer, right? So you can uh, facilitate your efforts to reach the managerial objectives, your owner business final objectives. Let us come to the first unit here. Introduction to engineering economics. The subunits, subtopics are basic principles and methodology of engineering economics, fundamental concepts, demand analysis, theory of form and supply, especially elasticity of supply. These are the topics we are going to discuss under this particular unit. Let us come to the uh, unit wise understanding, right? So, introduction to engineering economics. Engineering economics is a subject of vital importance to engineers. This subject helps to understand the need, the knowledge of economics for being an effective manager and decision maker. Of course, and at entry level, you may not take a decisions. You may simply take orders from your boss and execute that particular orders. But after certain period of time, once you gain good amount of experience, once you promoted as a manager for the production department, you have to take several decisions, and that decision should be economically acceptable. Then only the owner will happy about your decisions, because any business ultimate objective is profit making. Everybody start business to earn some profit, right? So here profit making can possible when you best utilize the given resources, right? The simple formula for this particular business equations, right? Cost plus profit margin is equal to price of the product. It means here the price of the product have two components. One is cost and another one is profit, right? So here the price of the product you cannot simply change according to your interest in a stiff competitive environment, because if you keep on increase the price, your product may not be buy by the consumers, because other competitor may give it a cheaper best price, right? Because of that reason, so you cannot make changes in a price. You must accept the market price in a competitive environment. So the only area you can increase your profitability is to focus on cost, how much amount you are spending to make the commodity. It is very important, right? So if you reduce cost of making, obviously your profit margin will increases without disturbing the price of the commodity. So that here you have to take such decisions, and this particular subject teach you how to take such type of decisions. So because of this particular concept, dealing with one particular business or one particular business unit, it comes under microeconomics, right? So coming to the principles and methodology of engineering economics. So here, how to proceed, what we have to do. So you imagine yourself as a engineer, right? There is a proposal of buying a 1 crore worth of machinery, right? At the time, what type of procedure you have to follow, what are the principles you must adopt to take a good decision, economically viable decision. So these are the principles one must follow. The first one is generate alternatives to buy that particular machine. What are the various alternatives are available, and those alternatives you have to note down first. So after noting down the alternatives, what you have to do, focus on the differences between the alternatives. Definitely through various alternatives you may buy. So for example, let us take, for your understanding, let us take two alternatives. You can buy that machine through online or direct purchase, right? So here, because that machine manufacturer is there, is not available in our country, but he available in abroad. So you can directly meet him and check the product and give the order. In another way, through online sources, you can go. There are two alternatives. So in a second case, what are the differences in between these two alternatives? You must study, focus, right? How these differences give effect on your purchase decisions. So you have to focus on that one. After that, the third principle is use the same perspective. So viewpoint should be similar for the two alternatives for better discrimination of the decisions, right? So the fourth principle is use the same unit of measurement. Whatever the measurement, most of the cases in business units, the measurement, common measurement is money only. So monetary terms only we measure all the decisions because we are doing business. So even you buy the machinery online mode or offline mode, you must check what amount of money we are going to spend for the transportation, for order, for uh, installation of that machinery. So you must measure with money. Next one is consider all relevant factors. So every alternative decision have associate with different factors. So you must consider all the factors and compare each other decisions. Next one is conduct a sensitivity analysis means every factor have a different type of impact on your decision making, right? So because of that reason, you must consider n number of factors of both alternative decisions and conduct the sensitivity analysis. So what factors affect in which way, and if the factors are neutralized, what will be the consequences, kind of analysis you have to done nowadays. Because of the computer technology, information technology, you can do by using the software, right? So the software tools are available. By using that particular tools, you can do that analysis. After that, you have to take a decision. And after taking one particular decision, you must monitor. You must monitor that particular decision continuously because in future anything may change, any uncertainty may occur. Whatever the factor you expected to occur, it may or may not occur. So because of that reason, so continuous monitoring should be done. Otherwise, your project may collapse. So these are the various principles one must consider. And coming to the fundamental concepts of managerial economics, here I said the economics deals with the wants and means. So any individuals you take, organizations you take, organizations or individuals, the wants are unlimited, but means are limited, resources are limited, right? So everyone try to utilize these limited resources to fulfill the unlimited wants. So in that particular process, you will see the scarcity of resources. But once case, you may have 1 to 10 different requirements, but all these 10 requirements have not the same importance, right? So different requirements have different importance based upon the time, based upon the situation. So that particular scaling can be considered as a scale of preference. Based upon that only you can take decision which requirement should be fulfilled first and which requirement should fulfill next. At the same time, choice. What choice? What options we are taking, right? How these options can fulfill our needs. That is also come under managerial economics. So you choose one particular option. You want to fulfill one particular requirement because you see that requirement have most important, most need at times. So after picking that particular requirement, so what amount of satisfaction you are getting by spending some resources? It is just like buying a apple because you are hungry, right? So what amount of satisfaction you are getting? Suppose you have a 50 rupees, right? With the 50 rupees you can buy two apples, or with the same 50 rupees you can have a plate meals, or with the same 50 rupees you can have some drink, right? There are three different options you have. Which option you are choosing, which is very important, right? So how you are getting satisfaction? The satisfaction we consider as a utility, right? So what amount of satisfaction you are getting by picking that option, and what value it is generating by spending that amount of money should comes under economic concept only. Next, consumer and producer goods. Right here, at the time of taking the decision, these particular options, above said options, wants, scarcity, scale of preference, choice, utility, purely depend upon the product, whether it is a consumer product or a producer product. To understand this, first of all, you should understand what is consumer product and what is producer product. So if the product is directly consumed by the end user, the product made to serve the end user, then that particular product can be called a consumer product. But the product made to uh, make some other product, right? So that particular product can be called as a producer good. For example, if you take a rice, so in a rice case, if you buy rice for your household purpose, consumption of house family, right? In your family, you want to consume one bag of rice per month. So if you buy one bag of rice, so that particular product can be called as a consumer good. But the same rice purchased by a restaurant to serve the customers. So the same product in this particular case, it can be considered as producer goods. At the same time, coming to the economy of exchange, what value of economy you are getting, what amount you are paying, and what utility you are getting. So these two must be equalized, and that should be taken care in the business economic decisions. Next, classification of cost, how to divide the cost, understand the cost, and supply and demand. These things in detail we discuss later. So the interest rate, time value of money, equivalency, equality, these matters comes under fundamental concepts of managerial economics. Now coming to the topic called demand. What is demand? Right? So here demand is an economic principle referring to a consumer desire to purchase goods and services and willingness to pay a price for a specific good or service. For example, I would like to buy a car, but I am not able to pay. I do not have sufficient money. I would like to buy a 10 lakh worth of car because I like that car very most. So it doesn't mean from my side that particular 10 lakh rupees car have a demand unless I have ability to pay for it, right? So these two conditions must satisfy, right? I must have willingness to buy. At the same time, I should accept the price of that particular product and ready to pay for it. Then only I can say from my side that product have a demand. Now, what are the various factors that determine the demand? Let us see. So here price of the product very common because based upon the price, our desire will change, our interest will change, right? If price is high, our intention to buy, our desire to buy will reduce. So automatically, if price is less, so more people intend to buy. At the same time, level income level. So in an income level case, see, next factor is income level of consumer, right? If I earn more money, my income is more, definitely I intend to spend more. Therefore, the demand is more, right? When I have more money in my pocket, I try to consume more than my requirement. So that is a common tendency. So that this one is one of the factor determining the demand of a product. Next, taste and preferences. I am very particular about one particular uh, biryani. Let us take, right. So here, so I would like to have biryani only in one particular restaurant. So that because of I am very specific in taste and preferences, so every time from my side the demand will not change. But if I am not such a particular person, what happens? So the demand for that particular restaurant will keep on changes. So taste and preferences also affect on the demand of a product. Next, the price of related goods. Here, let us try to understand what are the related goods. Related goods, two types you can see. One is a substitutes and another one is complementary. Substitutes, let us come to the substitute. Substitute means instead of this, whatever the utility I get by using a product, more or less equal utility. Utility I already said. Utility means the satisfaction, right? Whatever the utility I get by using product A. For example, for your understanding, let me take the tea. By having tea after this class, by having tea, I will get some relaxation. But if tea is not available, I may not go for the cool drink or juice. Definitely, alternative is a coffee, right? So because whatever the satisfaction utility I'll get by consuming the tea, more or less equal utility I'll get by consuming the coffee. So that you can say the coffee is the substitute good for the tea. Tea is the substitute good for the coffee. Likewise, cool drink is substitute good for the fruit juices. Fruit juices are substitute goods for the cool drink. Likewise, so the substitute good price increases, it impact on a other substitute good. For example, I regularly consume coffee because the coffee price is, let us say, 15 rupees, and tea price is 12 rupees, let us say. But all of the sudden, so coffee beans rate increased because of the scarcity in a market, so the price of the coffee increased to 20. So the price difference in between tea and coffee are almost 8 rupees, double. So in this case, definitely some of the customers shift from coffee to tea because the same utility these two products will give. So because of coffee prices increased, what happened? Tea demand increased. Because of coffee price increased, coffee demand decreases. Alternatively, other side, the coffee demand increases. Some customers turn towards tea, right? So that is about a substitute good. When you come to the complementary goods, means the ingredients you use in the making product can consider as complementary. If complementary goods price increase, automatically the cost of making goods will increase. For example, let me continue the same, the tea example, right? In a tea, you use milk, sugar, tea powder, XYZ. So when milk prices are increased, right, I cannot sell the same tea at 12 rupees because the cost of ingredient increasing. So that definitely I must increase the price of the tea, otherwise reduce the quality of the tea. So whatever the thing I do, whatever the decision I take, definitely it impacts the demand of the tea. So that is why price increase or decrease of substitute goods and complementary goods will affect on a demand of the product. Next, expectations about the future prices, right? In future, if I am expecting some product price is reducing, so I postpone my purchase decision. In future, the price of the product is going to increase. If I come to know, immediately what I do, immediately today I go and buy it. Just like you see, in nowadays the petrol prices every day changing, but 1 year back or 2 years back, you see, so when the announcement came from the government, uh, in news, if you see, by the night onwards, petrol prices are hiking by 2 rupees or 3 rupees. It's not a big issue, but you see, there is a big queue in front of the petrol pumps because future expectations. So tomorrow the prices are going to increase. So that, so tomorrow need also we have to fulfill today. You go and buy the petrol for tomorrow, right? So buy the petrol today for tomorrow need. So that is also one of the factor influence. Expectations about the future income. If I come to know my income is going to double in the next month, what I do? Now I start celebrating, which means spending more money. Spending more money means demand of that particular products are increasing. Instead of going 4 times to the restaurant in a month, I intend to go 6 times because I'm expecting next month onwards my income will increase, so that my spending patterns will change. So therefore, the demand of the product will change. Distribution of consumers over different regions, number of consumers, right? So also affect the demand of the product. If more number of consumers are there in one location, so for example rice, wheat, so in north side you will see more wheat consumption, in south side you will see more rice consumption. It is because of the customers, consumers distributed, the price, sorry, rice consumers more distributed at on south side, so that here you see more demand for the rice. So wheat consumption is more at a north side because customers more prefer wheat atta, so that there you see there is a different demand, right? Advertisement effect. So whatever the amount of money you spend to advertise a product, that also impact on a uh, product demand. Otherwise people, the business people, they don't spend crores of money for the advertisement. Definitely advertising have an impact on a customer uh, mind, right? So therefore the product demand will affect. So any other factors which influence on this particular thing also consider. Next, law of demand. So by keeping all above said factors constant except the price, right? In every change, every fall in a price, there will be a increase in a demand by keeping all other factors constant. All other factors in the sense, except this price, except this price, remaining factors you keep constant and take only price is the one particular factor and take the demand. So when you reduce the price, the demand of the commodity will increase. So here, what happens, every fall in a price, there will be an increase in a demand. That particular relationship, we can call it as a law of demand. Other demand determining factors remaining the same, the amount of quantity demanded raised with every fall in the price and vice versa, called the law of demand. So here simply assumptions are all other factors should kept constant. So here you see operation of law of demand will be like this. When your price is 1 P1, so you have more demand. So when your price is P1, you have more demand. See, right? Q1 demand you see. So when your price increases, what happens? Automatically your demand decreases. Likewise, if you take several prices, right? Several prices and associated demand, you will find a, 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 a curve like this. All intersect points of a price and demand, if you connect, you will see a curve like this, and this curve can be called as a demand curve, right? So it slopes downwards from left to right. Okay, right? This is operation of law and exceptions to the law of demand. So what is law of demand? When keeping all factors constant except the price, in every fall in a price, there will be a increase in a demand, so that the demand curve slopes downwards from left to right. But in few commodities case, few products case, you cannot see this particular thing. In which products case, in which situations case, this particular law doesn't apply. That particular case can be considered as exceptions to law of demand. So let us see what are those exceptions. One is given goods. Given goods means given proposed a good which cannot affect. What is that law of demand says? When price increases, demand should decrease. When price decreases, demand increases. But given paradox says that when price decreases, demand decreases. When price increases, demand increases. So it happens. In which type of commodity case these things will happen? Generally, very uh, low price commodities. Suppose you take a broken rice. Usually, we take that type of example. For your understanding, let me take a ration rice and the supermarket price. So ration rice, of course, not directly from the government. After government, when the persons used to sell that particular rice in a second market at a 10 rupees, right? For example, 10 rupees or 20 rupees you take, right? So 10 rupees they are selling at a market. Okay, the next best quality rice is 15 rupees, let us take, right? So your family or one family consuming this 10 rupees rice because they are affordable to pay 10 rupees, so they are consuming. So all of the sudden, because of the more crop, so the rice uh, prices are reduced. This 10 rupee rice reduced to 7 rupees. The price of the 10 rupees rice reduced to 7 rupees per kg. And the next best quality, that is 15 rupees rice. And 15 rupees rice has become 12 rupees. Now, what will be the decision of this particular consumer? Do he go for this 7 rupees rice? No, because everybody wants to consume the best. Because of they are not having sufficient money, they go with the 10 rupees. But now, if he can spend 2 rupees extra, automatically what happens? Immediately he will get the good quality. So that instead of going for the 7 rupees, he will get he will buy a 12 rupees rice, the best quality rice. Because of that reason, so definitely in cheap quality goods, when price reduces, customers don't buy that and they prefer to buy the next best quality, that is said by Giffen. And because of that reason, that particular thing can be called as a Giffen paradox. And Veblen goods case, it is opposite to the Giffen, very costly product space like a diamond, costly car space. So why the customers, the people buy those costly things to show their prestige, their image, right? So here, if they buy that particular costly product, which is unique in a market, maybe one or two units you can see, very costly products. So that is why they spend more money to make a differentiation. But when the price of that particular commodities comes down, if everybody able to buy it, what happens? So these customers, they don't buy it. So what happens? So when you reduce the price of the luxurious goods, the first customers, those who are buying for that particular product, they don't buy because the price reduced, it cannot show the differentiation. It cannot give the prestige, right? It cannot exhibit their prestige, so they don't buy. And the next people, next level people also, they cannot affordable to buy. So automatically, what happens? The demand of the product reduces. When your price reduced for the luxury good, like a diamonds, very costly cost. So what happens? The demand of the product also reduces. Next, future price changes already set based upon the price changes. You are expecting tomorrow price is going to reduce. So today you postpone your consumption, but tomorrow the prices are going to increase. No matter whatever the price today, even the price keep on increasing hour to hour, you don't consider that and go and buy, because you know in future this particular price may double. Next, ignorance. You are not very bothered about the price of the commodity because you are passionate about the good, so that you don't consider the price. At that time this law cannot be applied. Emergency case and change in a fashion, taste, preferences, uh, conspicuous necessities means very important. Without that you cannot survive. That type of goods case, we don't consider the price. Even price reduce or increase, so every day you have to uh, spend 1 kg of rice for your family, right? So of course that is not a cheap rice. You are consuming the best quality rice. That is your routine, but it is compulsory. You must eat every day. So because of that reason, what happens? You don't consider the price because it's a essential thing for necessity for your family, right? Bandwagon effect. So here in this particular case, what happened? In this particular case, you see bandwagon effect also one of the exception to the law of demand. Here in this case, some customers have a strong belief about one particular product, right? So they every day they must use it even if it is not a necessary, but they believe strongly I must have a kumkum at forehead, right? So definitely they don't consider what price and what things. So definitely every day they consume it. So in that case also it is purely based upon the beliefs the people having. So they buy the commodities not based upon the price changes. So these are the various exceptions to the law of demand. Next case, demand forecasting. So predicting the future demand. Demand forecasting is about predicting the future demand, because here suppose if you take a car manufacturing company, right? So how many units the customers are going to buy for the year 2021 should estimate today only, because unless they start making product today, they cannot deliver the product by end of this year. So that here they have to predict the demand of the product today for the next year. So next year demand they have to estimate today. Therefore, they can make the commodity, they can manufacture the product. So here, if they fail to estimate the demand properly, what happens automatically? So the customer requirements cannot reach. So they expecting 1,000 units they can sell in the next year, right? Accordingly, they manufacture the goods, right? The cars. So next year, when next year comes, what happened? Only 500 customers came and buy the car, and remaining 500 goods left in a business. So what happened? So whatever the amount you spend on these all 500 units should isolated, right? So the amount, the investment you've done on this particular 500 unsold cars will be kept like that, and that will not create any additional value. Means it's under expectation. If at the same time, if you take a over expectation, right? So sorry, earlier one over expectation, because only there is a 500 units demand, but they expected 1,000 units and made it, right? So under expectation means, so they thought that only 1,000 units demand will be there, so that they manufactured 1,000 units, but customers 2,000 customers came to buy the product. So what happens? They can give only uh, 1,000 customers, and remaining 1,000 customers they don't wait for you. What they do, they go for the alternative, because market, competitive market, there are so many alternatives. Till you make it, they don't wait. So immediately you will lose your customers. So that is not good thing, and this is not good thing. In this case, what happens, right? So overestimation case, what is happening? So your resources are wasting, your resources are wasting, and underestimation case, you are losing your valued customers. So here, to avoid that, we take a forecasting. So there are various forecasting methods, techniques available. Let me give brief about these particular techniques. Demand forecasting methods. So mainly there are three. categories you can say: survey method, statistical method, and other methods. When you come to the survey method, survey of buyers, survey of sales force, right? So if you prepare a questionnaire, uh, if you have a list of questions and ask the buyers, it is just like giving a feedback, right? You made a product and give the product to the customer, right? From the customer you get the information: how is this, and what is the result, and price is okay, and the availability. Likewise, different set of questions you made, and given that particular question bank, we can simply call it as a questionnaire, to every customer who buy that particular product can come under the census method, right? So because when your customers are limited, just there are 100 members, so you can simply ask everybody to give a feedback, but your customers are lakhs, so you cannot meet all these lakhs of customers. So that what you do, so you take a sample size. Out of lakhs you choose 1,000 customers, those who can represent all these lakhs of customers. So there are various techniques available, but that is not our topic. We won't discuss here. But if you pick few representatives from the total population, then that kind of method called a sampling method. So you select a few customers and distribute a questionnaire and get the feedback, then that comes under sampling method. Next, when you come to the Salesforce method, instead of asking the end user, you simply ask the Salesforce, because they directly interact with the customers, so that they can have the some idea about how customers responding towards the product. So in that particular case, so you directly uh, get the feedback from your sales force, especially in an insurance type of products. Definitely, when you go and ask the customers, they may not give the right information. They don't prefer to give the right information. So in that case, definitely the another option is meeting Salesforce. So in a Salesforce case, definitely the sales insurance agents definitely they have good idea how the clients are responding about one particular product, insurance product. So they have good idea, and they are always ready to give the feedback, so that you can get the right information. So that is Salesforce method. Next, coming to the statistical Next, coming to the statistical methods. In a statistical methods, you will have four different methods. One is trend projections, barometric technique, uh, simultaneous equations, and correlation and regression. These are the available statistical methods for demand forecasting. Right? Let us come to the trend projections. The trend projections, it is about getting the data of previous years. Last year, how many goods we sold before last year. Likewise, 5 to 10 years data we collected, and by collecting the data, so we can estimate what will happen next year. So that particular case can come under trend projection. How the trend is going upward or downward, accordingly we decide how many goods we can sell in the next year. At the same time, barometric technique. In a barometric technique case, the product demand will be decided by another product, another product. So here, another product, in the sense the both products may be interdependent. For your understanding, let me give you example. Suppose a stabilizer demand, you can estimate based upon the sales of the electronic goods which run by the stabilizer support. So here the stabilizer manufacturer wants to know the future demand, he must focus on the electronic goods which run by the support of stabilizer. So that type of thing can be called as a barometric technique. Next one is simultaneous equations. So in this particular simultaneous equations method, so whatever the factors influence with the purchase decision, demand of the product, all the factors will be considered and prepare different equations, and by using these particular equations, they will forecast the demand. At the same time, one more thing is a correlation and a regression. Of course, we are not going to practically do all those things. Just for idea, you have to focus on this one. So correlation, relation between two factors, relation between two determinants, right? You have to study accordingly. You have to decide. So regression talks about one uh, factor effect on another factor, independent and dependent factors in a purchase decision, right? How the independent factors are influencing by the dependent factors. So that particular study, if you want to do, so that comes under correlation and regression. And coming to the other methods, in other methods case, so you see expert opinion, test marketing, controlled experiments, judgmental approach. Expert opinion case here, you see, what happens? You take one expert in the area of that particular business and get his opinion. Accordingly, we decide how many units we are going to sell, right? Next, test marketing, when especially when you are going to launch a new product, right? So it is very hard to estimate how many units are going to sell. So that first we give a simple samples as a free gift, right? So after giving a free gift, what we get? So some feedback we get, those who use these free samples. So after the response you collected, you can decide how many units you can commercially launch on a market. Next, controlled experiments. A controlled experiment comes in a case of a already succeeded product, right? Because a product life cycle concept is there. Of course, when time comes, I will tell you. So here, the every product has a lifetime, right? So if product once it gets success, so to keep in a market for a longer period, we made lot many changes in that particular product. So to make that product stand in a more time in a growth stage, right? Because in a product life cycle, you can see four different stages: introduction stage, growth stage, maturity stage, and decline stage. So when the product stands more time in a growth stage, the company can make more profits. So to keep the product in a growth stage for a longer period of time, so the business people do different changes, futures they make changes like your Splendor Plus, Splendor Super Splendor, different versions they release in a market to keep that product in a market for a longer period. So that thing can come under controlled experiments, right? By doing some experiments, they estimate some demand. So at the same time, judgmental approach. In a judgmental approach, so based upon the judgment passed by the authorities, we take a decision. Suppose the government decided uh, to impose more tax on a tobacco products. Automatically, what happens? That impacts on a sales of the tobacco products. So actually, who decided? This government decided. So the tax should be increased or consumption should be decreased. So some regulations they given because of the corona, right? Chewing the tobacco is not at all permissible, because they should not the people should not allow to split on our roads. So because of that reason, automatically to control these particular things, so they may given some restrictions on this particular product, the raw material used to make the product, tobacco product. So automatically this impacts on a sales of the uh, tobacco uh, related products. So these things comes under judgmental approach. These are the various methods of demand forecasting. And coming to the elasticity of demand. In this elasticity of demand, I will give you explanation in the next class in the next session, because the total unit I would like to plan for 2 sessions, right? So from elasticity of demand, I'll give in a next session. Thank you very much.